I'm tempted to end our conversation there, uh, having talked about the Book of Joy in perhaps a way that our audience did not expect us to. I certainly didn't.
Well, that's a good
But
thing.
yeah, right. Uh, but I do want to. So when you say share, you mean sit here in the situation with the other person, right? You don't mean
Well,
communicate.
the first thing I mean is I'm not sitting.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I mean is, yes, I want, pardon me, I want to be in the world, in the messy, muddy, bloody, stupid, smart world. I want to be part of that. I don't want to imagine myself as not part of that.
Mm-hmm.
That that's to me that's an ugly option.
Why do you? Why did you bring that up? Like, why do you talk about not being in the world?
Well, because one of the things that understanding, enlightenment, joy, happiness, all of these things promise to do is to lift us from the mess.
Ah, uh-huh.
And that's, to me, that's not a desirable outcome. It's just, to me, it's just not. It's like too much air conditioning or something.
I think so. As I said, the goal that I set for myself was to help other people, and I think this is not always a wise or an appropriate thing to do. So, like we were talking before about when people come to me and they say, "What about nuclear war? What about global warming?" I feel their need to be reassured and to be given reasons to believe that global warming and nuclear war aren't going to happen, or perhaps they can live their lives under that shadow happily anyway. And I know that those needs are real, and I have a strong feeling that I ought to do something about them. I ought to alleviate their fears. I ought to help them through this in some way. And that's, like I said, maybe that's not the appropriate response.
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate or not. And I you know, I wouldn't be in a position to judge that. My question is, why would I choose to relieve somebody of an anxiety that's real and appropriate? You know, it's appropriate to worry about global warming. It's appropriate to worry about nuclear war. Those are real threats. And telling, to me, to reassure someone that they won't happen is to encourage inaction. Rather, I would say, yeah, it's a real possibility. We should be doing things about it. And, you know, that to me is the response I would choose to make. I don't want you to stop believing in that global warming is a threat. I don't want to reassure you that global warming won't happen. In fact, what I want to do is tell you that global warming, nuclear war, all these things are real threats and real possibilities, and they require a response. You know, if they're to no longer be threats, they require a response. And the difficulty of those responses is that the scale and place of the threat is A, so large, and B, so distant, that it raises the question, you know, well, what can I do? And, you know, it leaves us with all these little things to do, every silly thing from voting to donating to having conversations to teaching classes to doing things. But most important of all, is to be present. Because to step out of, to try and imagine that I can step out of this, or imagine that I can tell you that don't worry about it. Those are kind of remote things. But what I can tell you is that, yeah, I'm here too. I have the same concern. Let's be present in this together and think about what our opportunities are and what our responsibilities are and all those kinds of things. And as far as reassuring you is concerned, I'm afraid you're going to have to do that for yourself.
Well, so when I said help someone with this question, what you just did was helping me with this question. If I asked it, which I didn't, but I can imagine someone coming to you and saying, Paul, I'm worried about global warming, and you telling them what you just told me, that would be helpful to them. That is a form of help. And other people can't do that. They can't extend their hand to the one who's asked for help because they're not standing on any firm ground themselves. You can't give of yourself to people if you have nothing. And that's what I get a lot from other people. I get, I say, hold out your hand to me, and they scream. It's just incoherent terror. Or they lash out. They say, you're the problem, actually. And I understand that that's because they haven't gotten out of their story. And so I think this is where I have to disagree with you. I think that transcendence doesn't mean leaving the universe and pretending that you're God and that you can see everything objectively. I think that it means finding an end to that story and saying, I have finished this story. It came to an ending, and now I can tell it to you. I can give it to you. And it won't be a scream. It won't be a cry for help. It won't be, I won't be lashing out at you. It can really be a gift that might really help you.
Well, what you say confuses me a little bit because I wasn't talking about transcendence. I'm always pretty dubious about transcendence. So it's likely that I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, so what were you saying was because you said, this is why I'm suspicious of things like transcendence and joy. And
I didn't say transcendence. I said joy and other things, but I did not say transcendence. Okay. Because and I can be firm about that because it's not part of my vocabulary. It's not something I think about. Nor is it anything I wish for. In fact, if you think back, what I've said is that actually kind of like something like transcendence would be the last thing I'd want. I'd prefer to be in the mud with everybody else, just working on this stuff, than to have any idea that I would be in some way beyond it. That to me would be, well, it just would be an ugly thing for me. It just wouldn't be, I wouldn't be speaking of any kind of generosity. I'd be speaking kind of selfishly. if I were to advance the idea that somehow my thought had brought me to transcendence. Yeah.
And yet, here I am talking to you, and we've been talking for over a year now. And I came to you for help, and you gave it to me. And I think that I'm in, if I'm in the mud, you're reaching out. You're reaching out to grab me and pull me out. You must be standing somewhere else.
Well, not really. Not really.
Uh-huh.
That's the thing about faith. What I said earlier was that what I thought about faith was that it was companionable. That companionship is immensely powerful, and that I didn't reach out to you from some position outside the mud. I heard what you were saying. I recognized what you were saying because I feel those things myself. And so I spoke to you and speak to you now as a companion. Know the difference is that I'm older, but that doesn't mean I'm wiser or better or anything else. It just means that, I'm lucky I haven't spoiled yet.
As he brushes away the fruit flies.
Yeah, it's really just, but these positions of, like wisdom, that's just arrogance. And I think one of the good things about the participants in that conversation in the Book of Joy is that they are not arrogant men.
They're not.
I'm not clear about the narrator. I have a lot of suspicions about the narrator, but the men who are having the conversation, I recognize and enjoy their company.
Yeah.
And I appreciate knowing more about them through that book. At the same time, the insights that book gives me raises for me suspicions about its authorship.
About the journalist too,
about the journalist, yeah.
I don't remember his name.
But yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, but those men were right in it with the rest of us.
Oh yeah.
And that is, that's the value of what what they have to say. I think what was looking back and thinking about authorship, and you and I both author things, whether they're images or books or whatever. And I have probably for only about 20, 25 years, really struggled to kind of step out of my work in the sense of like not wearing it as my face, but rather making it in such a way that it reflects an engagement with life. But that's all. It makes no claim to wisdom. It makes no claim to anything special. other than its individuality. It's, it's like, I saw this, I make this, those kinds of things. But beyond that, I think the other stuff is BS.
Good ending. Good ending. I think we'll leave it there. This is not the first time this has happened where you've said something and I've said the stuff about authorship. Actually, I think I'm there with you. Although I don't want to try to rephrase what you said because you will disagree with me, and then we will have another hour-long conversation. I don't have time. But what you said earlier about being in the mud and getting out of the mud and the nature of help, I still disagree with you. But this isn't the first time that that's happened, and the previous times, I've ended up seeing that you were right all along.
Well,
So
I would,
maybe it's
I would hope that you're in, you'll be in a completely different, that I would hope that you would have a different point of view. I didn't say all of that to convince you that the way I was looking at this was the right way to look at it.
yeah,
I was only, nor was I asking you to agree with me.
yeah.
I was only saying, this is what I,
Here's what I think, right?
yeah.
And here's what I think.
Yeah.
I think that I think that you might have shown me a glimmer of a answer to a question that I had about the fact that Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama have had terrible things happen to them. They've been put through one agony after another, and have emerged, or in Desmond Tutu's case, did emerge as beautiful people, people who I would pay a lot to breathe the same air as. And it makes me worried. What if suffering ennobles? What if it's the suffering that makes you a better person? In that case, shouldn't I go out and torture people, right? Wouldn't that be nice for them? And
No,
obviously that's not true. So I'm looking for a way to I'm looking for a different story to extract from that. Maybe you've given me a point in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it requires, the kind of thinking you just outlined.
Mhm.
To, I just think that, I don't know, we are all trying to navigate these questions, and we all have observations or things to say about them, and that discourse goes on, and we have the chance sometimes to participate in it with others.
Yeah.
And taking advantage of that opportunity seems like a good thing.
And it's one of the best things, I'll say.
Yeah.
It's right up there for me with food and water and oxygen. Being able to have a conversation like this where we find out as much as it's possible for anyone to find out what someone else thinks. We get closer to it.
Yeah, I know. I think those, I mean, I think these kinds of conversations are vital, to living. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.